You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Hello everybody, how are you? Hello Michael, some already in the chat room ready and waiting for us, that's always good. I hope everyone's well this October evening, only 2 weeks to go to Halloween. Not long, the veil is thinning, as I keep seeing on Facebook. Now I'm not going to talk for too long because we've got a good hour's worth of interview with my wonderful guest tonight, Mr. Christopher St Booth, but I just wanted to say a quick couple of things. Well done to the winner of the rosary, the handmade rosary. That was Lucy. Well done. I hope you love you love that beautiful piece of jewellery that Kerry made, and if anyone does like it, don't forget to go over and check out Kerry's Spirit Soul Island page, because she's got loads of things like that on it that you can buy. Tomorrow night on Parasearch, because I didn't mention this at the end of the interview, tomorrow night on Parasearch, don't forget to join Kaz on her Spectral Zone, and she's going to be talking to MJ Dixon of Sage, but they're going to be talking about the tricks of the trade. Who knows what's going to come up in that conversation? Should be a good one. But if you're looking for something to do before that, yours truly is going to be interviewed by our good friend Bear Medicine Walker on her podcast, Spiritually Paranormal. So if you're looking for something to do before Kaz's show, go and check that out if you haven't had enough of me already. But don't forget, any of the shows that you like, whether they be Haunted Histories, whether it be Spectral Zone, Spirit Dimension, Supernatural Show, Paranormal Concept, whichever one of the brilliant shows it is that you want to catch up on, head over to our YouTube channel and you can listen to them on there. Remember to click like, share and subscribe. I can't say it the same way that Kerry does. Can't do it, but click like, share and subscribe and have a listen to them. But I think without much further ado, I need to start playing the interview really with Christopher. Okay, and on tonight's Haunted Histories, I am joined by, well, this gentleman was kind enough to be one of my very first guests when I started this show last year. He was kind enough and patient enough to sit and listen to me asking questions as a very, very inexperienced presenter and interviewer, and we talked about the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. But Mr. Christopher St Booth is back. I obviously didn't put him off. And he's back, and we're going to be talking about the St Albans Sanatorium in Radford, Virginia. Hi, Christopher. How are you?
I'm good. How could I say no to your lovely voice?
Oh,
how could I do that?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, it's lovely to talk to you. I know we've kept in touch on sort of Facebook and know what's going on and everything else, but it is lovely to get the chance to talk to you and hear your dulcet tones again, that kind of American Yorkshire hybrid that you've got.
Yeah, it's got like a much. I'm a little bit of everything from to all many places, from New Orleans to Los Angeles to Yorkshire, England to Texas to wherever I've been. I seem to pick it up. But I tell you, when you get me drinking, you can't understand a word. I'm back to the north side at that point. And I'm a farmer's son, yeah.
I'd be all right.
Taking the dog for a walk.
My dad's a Yorkshireman. I'd be fine.
Oh, there
I'd
you
be
go.
fine. I'll get you drunk when I'm next time I see you then, and I'll see.
There you
I'll see if
go.
I can translate.
Okay, there you go.
What's your tipple of choice?
Oh, probably whiskey.
Yeah?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Though I get into trouble when I drink whiskey. Always get into trouble.
I'll buy you a whiskey when you next come over to the UK, and we can sit
right.
and talk Yorkshire to each other.
Okay.
Well, say Christopher's a busy man. He's works with his brother, his twin brother Philip, on a lot of the projects, and they have their own. I suppose would you call it a TV production company?
Yes, yeah.
Called Spooked TV.
I'd call it that, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what I'd class, because you make them as well as produce them. You're the cameramen as well as the producers, aren't you?
We make them and then we sell them, yeah. That's what we do.
Yeah. And you've got, I mean, tell me some of the places that you've put films together at.
Oh, haunted places. Well, first of all, popped our cherry. Our potential first one was Waverley Sanatorium,
yes,
which was absolutely an incredible first time. Talk about a date to remember. It was something that I think, well, you can never wash it off, as you know, if you go into a very charismatic building, and then you also know the intense oppressive history that might have happened into it. It sinks into your soul, and that in that the case it did of Waverley Sanatorium. Of course, at that point we started going all across America, whether it was Pythian Castle to Ashland Estates to St Albans Sanatorium to all of New Orleans, where the real voodoo and vampires hang out, to the real exorcist house, which I still can't believe to this day that we were the only ones, or the first ones. Now they have actually recreated it, but we were the very first ones to go and film the inside of the house and do a paranormal investigation. So
that
we've
was
done all
Exorcist
kinds
Live,
of places,
wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Live.
Yeah,
yeah, because we talked to Gina Passanti the other week about the Exorcist house, because it's one that I think a lot of people, and I actually referred to your book. A lot of people don't realise that the film The Exorcist was inspired, or the book actually, The Exorcist, was inspired by what happened at that innocuous-looking house in St Louis.
Yes, it had a lot to do with that, and of course we've been in that house several times. I definitely have to say I would never want to go back there again, though. The energy is very oppressive, and I think that also being, a documentarian and some kind of a form of a conqueror, I would like to think that way. We would go there, we would explore it, we'd kind of put our name on it and then move on, but we wouldn't want to go back there, because I think at that point, I mean, for me, there's no growth, but at the same time, with the Exorcist house, it seems to be getting more oppressed and more darker due to whatever energies has been going on in the house since we left.
Yeah.
So it's just a place I would go back.
No, I remember you telling me when we were talking about what we could cover in tonight's show, that was one of the areas you said you wouldn't go back to. So something else about you that people may not realise is you're an incredibly talented photographer. And you do sell. Well, you are. I say it as I see it. You sell your work as a photographer as well, don't you, as a photography artist?
Well, I'm an artist, so, I mean, I'm just happy to make a living doing my art. And, I'm a musician. I was a musician first, and I still am, and I still do music. I still own a recording studio, so I still do. In fact, I was, actually getting ready to do the score for one of our new films. I started yesterday scoring up again, but I do that. And then, of course, I do, I'm an author now, which has done very well for me. But then the photography is something I've been doing for a very long time. And I used to shoot a lot of models, and I used to even work for Playboy in the European division when I was... Yes, in the 90s.
I didn't know that about you, sir.
Yes, I did. I actually did a lot of stuff for Playboy. And it was very classy stuff. It was very artsy. It was very big-time looking productions with incredible dresses from, I was also one of the an art director as well, so I was able to get all the wardrobe from all the big Hollywood movies like Elizabeth and, from the British films as well, and they would store them in Hollywood, and I was able to go and actually rent them, and that's what we used as some of our wardrobe from some of our Playboy shoots, as well as shooting some of the, the darker locations in Los Angeles. So it was a very good, what's the word? Sort of like a boot camp, not a boob camp, but a boot camp. Okay,
but a learning
boot
curve.
Camp.
A learning,
yeah, it was a boot camp
curve.
because we had to do stuff quick and in budget, but it was very high end, and the budgets are very large.
Yeah.
So it was a really good place to warm up before we felt we didn't want to do that anymore. But so the photography kind of carried over. I did quite a few centerfolds as an art director, and it was just something that I was always loved to take pictures of beautiful things, whether it be a building or, a person,
So did you ever go to a party at the mansion?
Everybody always asks me that, That's the first question everybody asked me to. I did, and I wasn't impressed, but that wasn't really my in thing that I was doing. We had plenty of parties at our own places that were wilder, I think, but yes, it was part of the thing. But back then, when I was doing it, it was a little bit more suave, so to speak. Right. Now it's changed a lot. The world has changed.
Yeah.
You talk about the 90s when things are a little bit more calmer, and in the sense of that. Now it's just a little bit more harsh.
Yeah.
I'm not really doing anything that's really harsh. It's like turning a light on and seeing things as bright, as they really are. I'm really much of a fantastical person. And I don't really do reality. I can't do it really in that sense. I mean, obviously in the documentaries we tell it how it is, but it is done in a sort of like a really credible production realm. It's not just like blown up like the 4:00 news or something.
Yeah. So if anyone wanted to have a look at your artwork when you release it, where can they have a look at it?
Well, the best place to really, follow me and see what I'm doing, because I'm doing all kinds of things, is really on my Facebook page, which is Christopher St. Booth at Facebook. And then we do a lot of art auctions. We do, I think, 3 a year. And then we do a lot of galleries in between that when we're not filming or doing everything else we're doing. So really Facebook, if you just type my name, in Google or whatever on the web, you'll find me doing all kinds of stuff. So.
And obviously you work together with Rachel, your beautiful wife, a lot on some of this artwork when you put together those amazing boxes and the jewellery boxes, and that has like your photo and then she designs the box, doesn't she? Yeah, not only is she a muse and a model, she models for a lot of the stuff. We just finished an incredible nun photo shoot at an old nunnery in Toledo, Ohio, in the U.S., and it's really creepy because it's like built in the early 1800s, and it's really a scary, huge place. And it's like someone had put a house in front of an old nunnery and then knocked through the walls and entered into the nunnery, and then they restored it, and it has like a big theater in it, and it's like the ceilings are like over 20 feet tall in the hallways, and it is just phenomenal. We want to try and film there, but right now I did able to do a quick photo shoot there of some creepy nun stuff that will be coming out in November. But yeah, Rachel designed boxes and jewelry as well as being a model. She's very artistically inclined as well. Yes. So yeah, I can say some of the only thing that stops me buying any of the work is the cost to get it over here. So, but it is absolutely, I mean, say some of the photography stuff, it's blown me away really. It's been absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you. You're welcome. So, on to St Albans Sanatorium, however you... St Albans Hospital? Asylum? It's actually a sanatorium. Sanitarium is for the mind and sanatorium is for the body. Right, that's how okay. So, the site itself, what I thought I would do is, I know from talking to some of my other sort of amazing American contacts, is they said one of the things you can always find with pretty much any site in America look before the 1800s and you will find some kind of reference to the early settlers or the Native American tribes that were based there. And Radford is no different, because the land was sort of, I suppose, used, lived on by 3 different Native American tribes: the Cherokee, and I apologise if I'm pronouncing this wrong, the Powhatan, and the Shawnee. But what the site of where the St Albans actually is, it was quite famous for in 1755. It's something called the Draper's Meadow Massacre. And this was a sort of settler, I suppose, settlement, encampment, and the Shawnee Indians, Native Americans, who were like a warrior tribe and everything, they actually invaded it, killed at least 5 of the residents. In fact, there's a story of what they did. One chap, it was an elderly guy, they decapitated him and put his head in a bag and handed it to one of the elderly women and said, "There's a friend in there for you." That's one of the stories, supposedly, of what they did. But what they also did is they kidnapped at least 6 of the residents, including Mary Draper Ingalls, who had 2 young sons with her, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And they took them something like 800-900 miles away. But Mary escaped, and she walked the 800 miles back to Radford, but without her children, because she figured they wouldn't be able to make the journey. And that led me to wonder what happened to a lot of these children, because it was actually not an uncommon occurrence for these kind of raids to take place, and it was normally because the Native American tribe may have had a raid done on it, and they were taking children in retaliation. But there's no accounts of what happened to her 2 boys. All it is that she made the 800-mile walk back to Radford, or what it's called, Draper's Meadow, to actually sort of tell people what had happened. And I thought that alone, that kind of bloodshed and fear, would be imprinted in the land anyway. But then I looked at the St Albans, and it was built it was opened in 1892 as a Lutheran boys' school. When you've investigated there, have you had any sort of experiences of the imprint of the school, the spirits maybe from the school itself?
Well, out of all the many places I've been doing, I think it's far over a decade over span now. The St Albans really stood out, and I can't believe I didn't even know about it until I think it was late last year or the middle of last year or something, when I actually saw the place. How come I don't know about this place? It's like same as Randolph County Asylum. How come I didn't know about this place? Well, that place was kind of being babysitted by some company that ran it out, and for ghost hunts, so they weren't actually really publicizing. But St Albans is an incredible gem that's hidden. And it reminds me very much like a different concept of Wayville Sanatorium, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. But when we went down to St. Albans, the first thing you are blown away is obviously the exterior. And the exterior is in pretty good condition. Now, they are different when you walk around it. Each, sides and fronts, almost like it's from a different era. Say one side is definitely 1920s, 1930s, because it has round white arches in the windows from the 20s and 30s, and then when you go to one side, then there's clearly the turn of the century, 19th century is going on. And then at the very front, you've got the more 1950s, 1960s look, because they kept converting it from many things, obviously from a boys' orphanage to a mental facility, to an old folks' home, to a clinic, to many different places that it has been, including an alcohol anonymous place that it was as well. Apparently Johnny Cash was there.
Really?
He was in AA meetings there. So parts, when you go inside, the same concept of the interior dictates as well. So you'll find one area that looks like it's from a 70s movie, you know, like from Starsky and Hutch or something. And then then that's where the AA stuff went down. And then you'll see the huge dining rooms with the pillars that looks like it's something from Ghost Ship. You know, it really looks like that. And of course, the shock therapy room in the basement, which truly has incredible oppressive energy. You walk in there and you feel very ill. And of course, the bowling alley in the basement, which is rumored to be haunted, as well as one thing I'd like to point out that I'm very impressed with, that this place has 15 real isolation cells that's still there. Now, in a lot of asylums or, you know, tuberculosis places, orphanages, they'll walk you around saying, well, this is where they lock the patient. And really all it is a food closet, a food storage place, and it has like kind of bars, but it was really meant to keep you from stealing the food. It wasn't really a place to a lot of people. But St Albans, okay, they actually really have 15 real isolation cells. And we have had the pleasure to actually lock ourselves in a few of them and really focus on some severe and documenting some severe paranormal activity. And, of course, that has become the basis of our new project, which is called The Attached. And we've been filming there since November of last year. And we're probably going to go wrap up the filming there this December.
Right. Well, say the place itself. When I've been doing my research, I do actually sort of try and dig down into what these places, the theory behind them, and even as a school, St Albans, they didn't condemn bullying; they encouraged it, and there are records of some of the young boys having died because of the bullying, although it's hushed up, and suicides because of the bullying. You know, that's harsh. That is, you know, that's being a mother myself, the thought of my son being bullied to the point where he couldn't go on any further, it breaks my heart. In 1911 the school closed because the chap who'd started it retired, I believe, or died. I'm not sure which. I can't remember which it is off the top of my head. And there was nobody left to run it in the way he had. And then in 1916 the hospital opened. It was a Dr. J.C. King who opened it. Now, his vision for St Albans was to make it possibly the best sort of mental health facility in the area, which is why I believe it had a swimming pool, didn't it? It had the bowling alleys, it had the grounds so that patients could get outside.
It has a bird cage on the roof, yeah.
Yeah, so
where they can walk around, yeah.
He tried to make it a decent place, and but unfortunately, as what happened with, you know, best will in the world with a lot of these sort of facilities at the turn of the last century, they didn't have the medical know-how to treat people the way we would treat them now, and there were horrific lobotomies. There were, as you mentioned, the shock therapy, the electroconvulsive therapy, hydrotherapy sessions, and a few years, sort of, I think it started about the 1920s, 1930s, insulin-induced comas as well to try and cure these mental health problems. The other issue, I think, with St Albans, from looking at the records that I found, is it was the only medical facility in a massive radius, so that's why they started treating other things over and above mental health problems, because there was nowhere else for people to go. You mentioned the shock therapy room being oppressive.
Yeah, I mean, I have actually. Actually, after this show, we'll have to get together on some emails and have you send some of the research you might have found that I'm not aware of, which is really beautiful, because we are trying to include a thorough timeline in this show that we're working on. Okay. The stuff that I have, which I would be glad to send you, is I have all the deaths, a lot of the death certificates.
Wow.
Of some of the patients, and yes, some of them are suicide, some of them are all kinds of interesting death certificates. Very hard to understand why they died so young or why they died, in general. But the shock therapy rooms, when we were there a couple months ago, I think August 7th is when we were there. We actually were filming for 5 days, and we also did a ghost investigation there. For me, it's very hard to stay in that room, too long. If I'm focusing on what I'm trying to find there, then you'll have to put up with it and you'll sit down and deal with it. It was more of the end of the night, but we had just concluded with what we felt was a severe attachment that was happening in cell 8, isolation cell 8, which is probably the strongest energy we felt there. And of course, this show that we're doing, like if you're familiar with Death Tunnel and Spooked, it's kind of like another show like that, but it's basically the script is being written by the ghosts. Everything that we find in the evidence, and then the archived history is writing this script. So the script is being written by what we find as we go along.
Yeah.
And what had happened in cell 8 and also the beginning of cell 7 is there was a girl that wanted to keep talking to us via EVPs, a very, very a Class A EVP, very strong little girl that was trying to speak as well. There was a very violent, sounded like a man in the room as well that was coming through the spirit box at the very same time. And I'm not just talking about you trying to figure out really what it is. We're showing like complete, incredible diction on this spirit box where you can really hear what it says. And it was saying quite a lot of foul language at the same time this girl was singing in an EVP. So we had a spirit box going in an EVP session, and they were talking to each other. And it was overwhelming, but at the same time, something had attacked Rachel in cell 8. And that's where a lot of our story begins, because that thing followed Rachel home.
Right.
And she couldn't sleep at night. She had a lot of problems of depression, and then literally seeing that she was seeing what that, whoever that was, we feel it was a female patient, she had created a doll that looked like her. And when she created this doll, she came up, this is what I saw. And it was this doll that had, a shaved head and like it had lobotomy scars on it. It was wicked. I mean, it was like the scariest thing you would see in any horror movie, this doll that she created. And of course, we went back there to do more investigations and base on it. Now, I don't know if you know the story of Rebecca. Have you heard of that story?
No, I haven't, no.
Rebecca is a patient that was put in around the 1950s. Right. And we're not sure if she was placed in there pregnant or she got pregnant while she was in there, but she had a baby and it was a miscarriage.
Right.
Her being so devastated just being put in there because she was unwanted by her husband for whatever reason. Back in the day, you were able to drop anybody off at an asylum saying, I'm tired of you, and that was it. Yep. So that was the case of Rebecca, a beautiful young lady, and she was pregnant. Somehow she was pregnant in the asylum and gave birth. She had a miscarriage, and the administration took the baby away. Well, somehow she was able to break free and get that baby, put it in a jar, and she kept it in the wall of her closet, an under hole inside the closet. And we had gone down there and obviously had started doing investigations, and on all evidence, especially the SLS cameras and some of the thermal imaging, we had seen the shadows and the stick figures of a figure that was actually putting something inside a wall, which also was a small little figure and a little shadow all going at the same time. But to top it all off, when they had taken her baby away, she had taken it back and treated it like it was alive. She would rock it at night. The administration found that again, and they took it away. She couldn't handle it, and she killed herself. And she hung herself in her bathroom. So one of our first stories that we're doing in this film documentary series is about Rebecca, and we actually filmed in her room when all this happened. And while we were filming it, the energy went through the roof of being oppressive. Everybody started crying.
Yeah.
It was really emotional. I mean, we actually showed the trailer teaser of it at Scarefest, which is a paranormal convention. That's a very big one.
Yep.
And it was we were very proud because it was sold out 3 times over. So we were very pleased to show the first 10-minute sneak preview of this. And I'll send you a clip of it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, a link, so you'll be blown away. It'll make you cry though, because it's very sad because we do.
At this story, Christopher. So seeing the dramatization sort of thing of it would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, what's beautiful about what we're doing, handling this story, is we found out this evidence, so we shot the recreation, and what happens? The recreation merged with the residual haunting to create a new form of energy. The two of them combined, we actually recreating it, stirred it in the senses of it up, but trying to be tender and treat it as a memorial and a tribute. We realized we're telling a story of a young girl who had everything to live for, but everything taken away. To the end, she had nothing, and she committed suicide. And just telling Rebecca's story, I realized this is just not Rebecca's story. This is a story of a lot of women, a lot of young teenagers who's gone through a miscarriage, or maybe their asylum is their parents' house or their husband's house, and they don't like where they're at, but they can't get out. So we were very proud to make this concept that we're filming now into a story of all women that have been treated wrongly and undermined, so to speak. But it's beautiful, and I have to tell you, the energy at St Albans is one of those places that you walk in and you go like, oh my God, when you walk in immediately. There's a lot of places you go in and you go like, I'm just not feeling anything, or it's just like it's been oversaturated by ghost hunts after ghost hunts after ghost hunts.
It's been overfished, yeah,
overfished, exactly. But this place, not the case.
So did you feel in Rebecca's room, and I think I have heard that, I didn't know what her name was, but the story does ring a bell now you've told me it again. Did you feel that by, retelling her story as a trigger, we use trigger objects, don't we, or triggers to try and incentivize spirit to talk to us and tell us their side of the story. But did you feel, I know we can't prove this, did you feel that she was upset you were telling her story, or was thankful you were telling her story? Does that make sense?
I don't think you're really gonna really know anything for sure when it comes to that. It's all just theory, and it's all just interpretation. But I'll have to tell you that when you do a story, it's like the beginning of, it's the old saying, God knows I'm good. You don't have to judge no one needs to judge you except for God or the universe, whatever you're into, in the sense of no one needs to judge you. When you, in life, you as long as you don't have an ulterior motive, or it's not premeditated, sometimes things happen, accidents happen, but you didn't mean it. You meant to do the right thing, so to speak. So your heart is true and pure. So my thoughts on this is that I do not know how we can create any closure for any wandering spirit that's locked in limbo if you do not tell the story. And hopefully it's the story that is true, because again, there are missing facts. You don't know for sure, but hopefully along the way you'll get clues or signs that this fact is wrong, and you'll go on to a different one. But what we found happened in the room was not that it was angry, where things would slam or close, or you would feel sick. It's like when we did the Exorcist house. Okay, supposedly you have not just a demon in there, you have the devil itself. That's what the whole Exorcist story was about. It was Lucifer himself. It was not a devil. So what do you feel? What do you see? Well, when I was there, and I've shot there twice now, once a couple of years ago on Exorcism Live, which was on television, and then we shot our own documentary in 2010, which is now on television as well. But I didn't feel that I necessarily I didn't see this devil come out of me, but what I did feel is madness, depression, insecurity, lack of confidence, thinking paranoia, not liking what I did, which is probably one of the worst feelings you can, not being happy with anything you're doing. So that is like living in hell, where you can never please yourself no matter what you do. Yeah. That really is the true meaning of that. That's what you get. So in that room in St Albans, we didn't feel that. What we felt was an over amount of sadness.
Yeah.
Meaning that everyone connected to her sadness and could have empathy towards her and maybe have animosity to the people that mistreated her, including the one who dumped her off at the asylum, maybe the one who got her pregnant, whether it was an intern, a doctor, or her husband herself, and then got rid of it. You know, who knows? But that's the kind of thing we felt. And then we felt at the very end when we were talking in our story, it's very much of a tribute. When I show you the 10-minute scene, you're done to very beautiful spiritual music. You'll see what I mean. It just makes you go, oh my God. Rachel has had this attachment that she feels is part of Rebecca, whether it's Rebecca's baby or Rebecca. We are still doing more tests, investigating, which is why we're going back to finish this up. But I'll tell you one thing. In her story, she is walking the same road as Rebecca. That's what has been happening through her dreams and her feelings. So in the recreation, we have the haunting. Then we have Rebecca hanging herself, which is a recreation. And then we have Rachel going through the same thing. So then we have Rachel, the actress part of it, hanging herself.
Right.
So you got all this, I guess, this complete circle. And then out of that room, all that came out of that room was everybody needed to hug each other and just come together to be compassionate and have empathy. So that was us trying to help tell the story of, you know, being forgotten, first of all, is the worst thing that could ever happen. When we did Children in the Grave, and there was 1,500 unmarked graves and 699 children buried in an unmarked grave with 0 names. What can you really do to create their closure except for catch the killer or remember that they have a name and then write their name on their tombstone and say, now you can rest in peace, dear Claire, whatever your name is, the name is of the victim, instead of saying number 549, good riddance. So I guess in everything we do, we feel that we create closure by telling the accurate stories we can through, obviously, history and through some of the evidence and signs that we're getting, which are open up to interpretation. And at the same time, we feel that the energy is becoming clear.
Yeah.
And calm.
This attachment that you said followed Rachel after, was it cell 8 you said? You think it...
Yes.
Do you think that was actually Rebecca?
That's what we believe, yes.
Right.
We are going to go do quite a bit more thorough tests and investigations in December to wrap up our findings and then finish her story. I mean, as you know, you've done some research on it. You know the story of the woman that was murdered, apparently there, right? In the bathtub. Have you heard that story?
It rings a bell. What I don't do with my research is look into. I look into the facts, like the actual sort of dates and all. I try not to look into some of the. How do I put this without sounding
folklore?
Yeah, some of the spookier things. I try and just look into the history thing. I did know the Rebecca story I just didn't know what her name was, because I remember them talking about it on the Ghost Asylum episode they did there. But
yeah, the woman that was murdered actually is a fact, and what it was is basically there was a woman that was decapitated, and it was known not decapitated, actually chopped up, possibly after a rape. And she was apparently, it happened in one of the bathtubs inside St Albans when Dr. King was working there. But where they found the body, and this is fact, they found it in a trunk of a car, which is just right over the bridge from St Albans. And apparently that chap who went down for it got actually found guilty because of it. And apparently, I think he was I don't know exactly what he was, but he was a part of the family of Dr. King.
Right.
And Dr. King tried really hard to hide all this. So basically what you got into this place is a lot of mixed emotions, whether it was an orphanage, an alcoholism, people were down and out on their luck, a mental facility, obviously people being forgotten, people being mistreated terribly. So you got this place carrying an incredible amount of just mixed emotions in the sense of negative emotions. And then, so when you walk in there, the place is like a maze. I mean, they keep building. It's kind of like the Winchester House. They keep building inside and building and building. So you could walk around for half the day and still not find everything. I mean, I've gotten lost every time I went in there filming. And in the Ghost Hunt, I would have to have someone that has been there for a year that could tell me how to get out, because it's like a maze. You can't get
like
out.
Hansel and Gretel and dropping crumbs as you're walking around so you can follow them back.
Exactly. And or the peeling paint, which is phenomenal looking in that buildings. But it is truly, we've used a lot of the photographs of the cells in some of our promo art for our new show, and truly how those pictures are is really how that building is.
So was Cell 8 the only one that really had an overwhelming, well, he had those experiences with the little girl and the angry scary man?
For Rachel, yes, and for me, something happened with me in there as well. And then while we were interviewing a lot of people about the past of it, and, you know, where there's a lot of documented stuff, but there's a lot of undocumented stuff as well. And we sort of tell the story of both, and then it's open up to interpretation. But a lot of people mentioned that cell without knowing that we had felt that same energy in that cell as well. And because when we just brought people into interview and say what experiences you had, they would tell us what had happened. I said, what room was it? And they would walk us, and it would be that same bloody cell. You know, and it was about seeing things creepy crawling down the hallways, and really just kind of really, you know, Korean horror movie stuff, so to speak. They was, you know, explaining that whatever it was just bad energy, or it was somebody that needed to get out. Now, I can only explain what my feeling was when I was in there, because if you've ever been blessed for a ghost to walk through you, or an energy, well, I'm calling ghost energies because that's really all it is. It's some form of residual leftover energy of whether a good memory or a bad memory. But it, you know, if you've ever been blessed, you'll feel when a ghost walks through you, you'll get all tingly and it'll feel very cold, like a drop. And you go like, oh, that feels cool, you know. I mean, it feels like, wow, thank you for trusting me to walk through me, and you know, feeling maybe that I'm a good person, that you would trust me, instead of people that are demeaning or debunking all the time. They don't believe in anything. So, you know, why would they even dance for anybody? They wouldn't. I mean, it's just like somebody coming in your house saying, well, I don't want you in my house. I don't like you. I can tell what kind of person you are. Well, spirits are the same way. I mean, they know if you're going to provoke them or exploit the situation. So I had felt that, you know, in a lot of places, but in St Albans, in that cell, I felt it walk through me, but stop in the middle of me, almost, you know, like that movie Shudder, where that spirit is on her back. If you remember that movie, great movie. Yeah, it's a great movie. It's where something attaches on, and you feel like this weight's on you. And I felt that, and I didn't like it. And that suddenly, my whole demeanor changed, and my whole energy changed. And I was like, we're filming, and I'm like running around in a circle like a chicken, you know, trying to shake this energy off me, because I don't like this heavy feeling that's attached to me. You know, so I'm not sure if that was Rebecca, or maybe the energy that's created from bringing her story back. You're bringing back the bad memories. You're bringing back the chap who put her in there. You're bringing the chap that might have raped her or molested her, or maybe even the baby that, you know, died, you know, had a miscarriage in that hospital, that went down the drain, or whatever you know the situation is. So you don't know what you're feeling, but you know when it's something attached to you where you're not feeling good about yourself, and when you walk away feeling really good. And this story has been a mix match of both, where we must tell this story. It's no different than telling any other stories we told. We must tell this story of how it's went down. And as we do, we get more evidence and more people reach out, sending more newspaper articles. Well, did you know this happened? Just like talking to you today. Did you know this happened? Did you know this happened? No, I didn't. And I have to tell you, all these locations definitely did have Indian massacres on them, or on Indian burial grounds.
Yep.
It's, in the cases of spectrophilia, it's always been the case where they found an arrowhead on the property, and then you went inside and somebody had mixed it with a voodoo statue or something from Haiti was inside the house. So the two magics together, creating hoodoo, Native American voodoo becomes hoodoo.
Right.
And every one of those cases had severe cases of spectrophilia, which is, ghosts after sexual appetite. Right. And so it's very fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, it is. And I obviously over in the UK, when I'm looking at UK stuff, we don't have the sort of, we don't have obviously the Native American link, because I have the same when I'm talking to Australia. They have their native, the Aborigine population. So you have a lot of that to factor in, which is very similar in respect to the sort of Native American mystical, spiritual side. And it is fascinating, and I agree with you completely about the stories. I mean, this is one of the reasons I am such a history nerd, is there's stories that people forget, things that have happened in history that should never be forgotten. And if I'm not telling my children, who are going to tell their children, and keep it going like that, these stories do get lost and they get forgotten. And the story of Rebecca and what happened to her should never be forgotten.
Well, it's the same
she as you say,
Auschwitz,
she's a sort of symbol for all the other women that were treated like. And I know there was a lot of them. I mean, one of my my best friend and her husband are both mental health nurses, and she used to tell me about this lady that she used to have to go and see, who was in her 80s and had been in one of the largest mental health facilities in the UK from about, I think she told me she was put in there in about 1945 or something, because she was pregnant at 16, and there was nothing wrong with her mentally, but because her parents didn't want the shame of their daughter being pregnant at 16, they put her into this mental health facility. Well, when the health facility closed down, sort of when we had the whole care in the community in the 1990s, by that point she was mentally damaged and she couldn't live independently. And when she'd have moments of lucidity, she would tell my friends some of the things, the fact that she literally gave birth and she didn't even get to see the child, and she didn't get help with all the things, the hormones that a woman goes through after birth and would have gone through after a miscarriage as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's funny you said about maybe the energy that you were feeling on your back was the person who'd raped Rebecca. As soon as you were telling me that story, that was the first thing I thought, that she'd been raped and that's why she was pregnant. It wasn't voluntary.
We hope to get down to the more of the you'll never know. No. I mean, these stories are, a lot of it's obviously not documented. You're going off by small newspaper clues. You're going off, passed down possible people that knew this and knew that. But so you go in there and you start feeling the energy and the signs, and you go through. But what I think is really beautiful is that I really don't think you're spiritual. If you're in tune with your spiritual, and I don't want to use the word energy, I'm looking for spiritual cloud of what's the word? Awakeness, but your spiritual concept of where you can breathe easy, knowing that you've done everything you can do, and you can, which is actually being spiritually awake is really about that, knowing when to stop, knowing when to move on, knowing that, I feel good about what I've done. And I don't constantly go on, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done this, which is a form of hell in its own right. I know that what we're doing down there, and what we've already shown in the sense of all the hundreds of people that saw the trailer at the one convention that we did a quick sneak preview, and also the owners of St Albans, and everybody that worked there at St Albans seemed very very overwhelmed that this is exactly what we need to keep doing to fix what the problem. They feel there's a big problem at St Albans about Rebecca's story. They feel there's something that they wish they could do, and also, which is a very fascinating thing, and I don't know if you know this, but there is a baby, a pickled baby, inside one of the universities down at one of the universities in Radford, Virginia. And they actually called up saying that this baby very much could be Rebecca's baby. Oh. So we're on our way down in December to go to that university and see if they will allow us to look at it, maybe film it, and see what we can find out. I know that they've been talking to the owner about this situation because they feel that there is something that is completely, locked in limbo here that needs to be closed. And I'm very proud to feel telling the story just as much as it was my hope to complete the Elisa Lam story at the Cecil Hotel story. Because these stories, there's no closure for the families, no closure for anything. And as much as it's going on even in politics today, there's never seems to be any kind of a winning side for a woman that's been abused. There never seems to be any kind of an outcome that's positive, and it needs to, and hopefully that is being addressed nowadays. But I just know that what we're doing feels right, and it feels very positive. And yeah, you know, are you going in there to stir things up? I don't think so. I think we're going in there to tell the story, and I think honestly, I think the spiritual world knows that we're there with no ulterior motive, but to help tell a beautiful story. And that, I think it's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, you're going in to say, please talk to me. I want to listen. I'm here for you.
Yeah, just like that movie Lovely Bones in the concept. You're opening her up and saying, let me try and tell you a story. And, you know, if you don't want me to tell it, then we won't find any evidence. We won't find any signs. We won't find any clues. It'll be cold as anything. It'll be a room that's completely empty. But you're talking about a place that is far from being completely empty.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Wow. So when did you say the Attached is out?
We hope to have it out next year.
Right.
It's actually a 6-part documentary film series, and it's about people that bring home attachments, whether they're from a haunted place or they get it at an antique store. They pick up an object that you have no idea what happened to the object. Like, what about that chair on the side of the road that somebody dumped? And you go like, why would they throw away such a nice chair? Well, you kind of find out why they would, because something happened in that chair. Yes. So we're doing different stories like that. A chap who finds a car and he's turns it into a racing car, and he keeps seeing faces in the rearview mirror kind of concept. And, you know, you find out there's murders and stuff like that, you know.
Wow.
You know, it's all kind of different cool stories that we will try to get into in this 6-part series. The first one is truly a tribute to Rebecca and what happened in St Albans, and of course the personal attachment that it's created with its, you know, its film producers, which has actually happened to us. Well, we didn't plan it this way neither, to be honest with you. No way did we go out to do a story about what happened to us. We went to do stories of attachments and stories because there was a few people that had attachments down at St Albans, and while we were investigating, it happened to us, and it was so overwhelming. And then, of course, like when we did, you got to know, when we did the Exit story, when we first put out the feeds, nobody knew anything about the diary, who had a diary, or who had the house, or who knew where the family was. And then a couple of our associate producers started doing some research. Greg Myers and Sandra Oates, I'd like to give a shout out to. They were great. They helped put together that story, and before you knew it, out came the family of the exorcist. Out came the family of the boy. Out came this house. Out came the story of the aunt. Out came a copy of the diary. It just fell like butter, and it fell in our laps to tell the story. Yeah. And you saw all these signs happen in front of you. Do you do something or do you not do something? Yeah. We decided to tell the story. That's what we did.
I could talk to you for hours. really good about all this kind of thing. I find it so interesting, and I agree with you. I think when the pieces are put in front of you, it's sometimes rude not to take them and put them together. If it's that,
there's a chap who came up to me at one of the shows that we've been on. We've been on tour since last November, so we do a lot of shows. And a chap came to me, he told me how somebody showed himself from the spirit world that was dead and told him how he must change his life. And I went, that is awesome. So what did you do? And he went, nothing. And I went, well, why would you do nothing if you truly felt that somebody came out from the past that was dead and gave you a sign of how to change your life and you do nothing about it? Because I thought people would thought I'd be crazy. And I said, that's what I'm saying is here's anybody gets any kind of a paranormal clue or a sign, and then people to throw it aside, then you're throwing away your gut intuition. Why are you even supposed to have that? Yeah. When we were 10 in our bedrooms, we saw an old lady walk out of a closet, with a little dog, and she called our name, smiled, and then disappeared. And Philip and I both saw her in our twin bedrooms, in our twin beds, and we screamed. And my mom comes running and said, "What happened?" And I said, "There's this old lady, and there was this sign, Holmes Road, and this little dog." And she goes, "Oh my God! Well, the last time you were there, you were 3 years old. It's hard. I can't believe you'd remember that. But Holmes Road is where, where your grandparents live, and then that little dog sounds like your grandmother's little terrier, and that old lady sounds, that you talk about, sounds like your grandmom." And the crazy thing is that I just got a call from England, and your grandmother just died an hour ago.
Yeah.
These are the signs that's supposed to show you, that you need to keep your life in check. Yep. I think.
Yep, I agree.
But a lot of these people throw it away because they think it's silly, or they think that they're skeptical, which I get that. I mean, there's a lot of people running around doing the wrong thing and saying the wrong things, in the sense of everything's a ghost, everything's a haunting, everything's a demon,
So. That's one of my biggest bugbears, the demon thing, but there you go.
I've never seen a demon. I'll tell you, like I explained it, in the Exorcist house where you would figure to be swarming with demons, all you really experience is shadows, which you have a tendency to see shadows in a lot of investigations. Very extreme changes. The main thing that you would get is very vulgar language, which I noticed. Mm-hmm. And also you walk away feeling very depressed, drained, not happy with your life, not happy with anything. And that's what you get in the concept of a dark energy. Yeah,
but a negative energy doesn't necessarily mean demonic. It's
not at all.
As I say,
not at all.
I know that I've talked about empaths and stuff with Rachel before online. If you meet a living person who's quite a dark, and I don't mean dark in a good way, I mean dark in they can drain you, they can make you feel like you're worthless, they can make you exhausted.
Narcissist.
So why couldn't the spirit do that as well? It's a similar kind of principle as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, their dark energies are narcissistic. Good energies are empathic. They have empathy, and you can feel that. We did a show. I was actually the last ghost investigation of this year. We did it at Ashram Estates, and during the break, we went down and saw this bridge, and it was a beautiful old bridge that was built right in the turn of the century. And I wanted to do some photography on it, so 6 of us went down to this old bridge, and I started getting sick. Rachel started to feel like really paranoid, and one of the other girls felt someone was following her, and then the other chap started getting pains in his stomach. We all felt ill, and we got to get away from this bridge. Of course, this is the bridge where they had found a torso at. The legs and the hands and the head was removed from this torso of this woman. This chap had just admitted to the murder. It was her husband 30 years later. It happened actually last month that the guy admitted to. He went down taking pictures, and we feel this incredible negative energy, horrible, that it actually ruined, everybody's day. Everybody was in a horrible place for the rest of the day because they couldn't shake the darkness of the sadness. And I was, to me, I could not handle the fact how someone could do that to somebody, to not only just kill them, but to actually, take away their complete identity by removing their body parts so you couldn't find any identification, truly demoralizing somebody, truly. And I couldn't deal with that emotion, and that stuck with us, and that was a rough gig to do after that, because we had to do a ghost hunt that night. And I would go, oh my God, it turned the whole energy of the place.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yes.
So.
Very. But as you well know, it's part and parcel of our job sometimes, isn't it, to cope with those things as well as the more positive energy.
It is. I mean, there was a note that I read. I don't know if you know of. There's a nun, and you might know of this. There's a nun that's possessed, because, as you know, I was talking about I was doing a nun photo shoot at a nunnery, and I was doing some more research on nuns, and I found the letter that the possessed nun had written. Have you heard of that one? And they on the dark web, and she wrote it in code, and they deciphered the code.
That one. No.
Well, 1676, this possessed nun wrote this letter, and it was in code. So recently they decoded it, and they printed what it said. And what it said was that man made God up. He's not real. And goes on like this to obviously demoralize, demean anybody that believes in God, like I guess the devil would do. And my first remark was, if man made God up, then he made you up too. Because you can't have one without the other.
No.
You have to have, if there is a God, there has to be a devil, and if there's a devil, there has to be a God. It's no different than hot water and cold water. You have to have both.
The opposite end of the spectrum. Yeah.
So if the devil said that to me, I would say, well, that's awesome, because he made you up too. Get out of here. Because it's as easy as that. Because either you're real or you're not. Both of you are real, or none of you are real.
Yes. Or it could have been argued she had some kind of mental health problem, and that's why she wrote it.
Well, correct. Correct. That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
But the concept of when you start saying,
one exists
when
and
one
the other
person,
one doesn't.
then that's not correct in any way.
Yeah.
You have to have both. Otherwise, you wouldn't know what evil was if you didn't have good.
It's very true.
You would have no idea.
Evil would be the norm.
How would you know what was bad? Yeah, how would you know what bad was if how would you know what bad was if all you had was bad? It wouldn't be bad. It would just be,
it would be like
drone.
a coin having two heads as opposed to heads and tails.
No ups or downs. Yeah.
Well, on that very philosophical note, make sure please promise me that you'll let me know what happens at your next investigation, and if you find anything else out about Rebecca, because her story is it breaks my heart.
I'm going to send you a link, and I want you to take a view of it, then you can give me a write back what you think of it, but I think you'll know exactly. And also, when you have time, please send me any other information that you've found on this place, because we're going to wrap up the story this year, and anything that obviously we haven't found, I'd love to. Yeah, it'd be awesome. I've
spent the last 8 hours trawling the internet and cross-referencing things and everything else, so I'll try and find some of the areas that I found, and I will send them through to you, including the stuff on the Draper's Meadow massacre that I found.
Yes.
That was it's a very interesting one. But yeah, thank you ever so much for your time, Christopher. I do appreciate it. We'll make sure we post the link to your Facebook page onto the Parasearch page, so if anyone wants to get in touch or to see what you're up to, they can go on there. And we'll also what's your website? Is it
spooktv.com?
I thought so.
Yeah, SPOOK. Yes, spooktv.com, SPOOKEDTV.com.
Yeah, and we'll post that one up there as well. So if anyone wants to have a look on that and have a look at all the different films that you've done. But I'd love to speak to you again next year when the Attached is all done, so we can talk about some of the other episodes and have a chat about those, because it sounds an absolutely fascinating project. And yes, thanks again for your time.
Well, thank you very much. All right, God bless you. Okay.
So, thanks to Christopher for his time tonight, talking about his experiences at St Albans. I'm sure you agree, it sounds a genuinely fascinating place, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the episode on Rebecca. Parasearch Radio has shows on 5 nights of the week, and you can catch all of them on Spreaker and on YouTube. Tomorrow night is the Spectral Zone with Kaz Rooney. Don't miss it. All that really leaves me to say is until next week, my friends, have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.